and I bumped into George in the park. So I was there with my wife, and I saw him and Mary Niven do, and I didn't know George, but we had some mutual friends, and obviously he was very visible, so I knew what he looked like. So I, boldly just went over and introduced myself and said, "Hey, I work at the studio. I recently applied to this role. I think it reports to you. I'd be so honored. I have a parks background, and it looks like, a very exciting time for Disneyland Resort." So I told him and, went through the interviews and was lucky enough to get it. So it was a interesting transition. And, you do wonder if had I just applied and not bumped into him that night, in front of Best Wiener in a Supporting Role, Award Wieners. That's where I bumped into him in front of, which is a spectacular location for strategic meetings.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic and so excited to hear your hey.
That one I wasn't even thinking about it. So I think that means it's starting to naturally weave its way in.
I think it is. But I have a question for you.
All right.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I was thinking about asking you that question. The short answer is yes. I think that there's got to be something beyond us, beyond, I don't know, beyond the next realm, whatever it might be. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's scary, whether it's comforting. I recently was visiting a hotel that there was a specific haunted room in it, and I had the opportunity to tour the haunted room, and whether I don't know if it's like, oh, I deeply believe in ghosts, or I just have this general like intrigue of, oh, that's really interesting. That's very fascinating. In Chicago, I lived right next to a very historic cemetery. And so sometimes late at night, if I wanted to not sleep for the rest of the night, I would just look up some stories of the people in the cemetery and some things that have happened there. Whether that was a good idea or a bad idea, I don't know. But still, it was just kind of interesting. So I think that I have a general intrigue. So what about you?
I absolutely believe that there is energy around us that we have no idea about. And things that we can't explain, things that we will probably never understand. So yes, I definitely believe in that there's stuff out there that we can't explain, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Including aliens. I think there's aliens.
Let's lump those into the same category. I mean,
Right, exactly.
the universe is just so big. Like, there's no way there's not another planet. Anyway,
Yes.
there's no life out there, right?
Yes.
You ask.
Because today we had the pleasure of speaking with Walter Magnuson, who's the executive director of Winchester Mystery House. And
Not a ghost.
he's not a ghost, but a big part of the legends and lore of the Mystery House is that there are other energy forms there and things happen and people have seen things and they do paranormal tours and just fascinating to hear how this historic house then became an attraction and now is known for, very interesting, again, legends and lore. One of those things being potential ghosts.
Potentially. Can't say
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes.
Walter also has just an amazing career prior to Winchester Mystery House. He spent a lot of time with Disney, both Walt Disney World and in California at Disneyland. And from there, he talks a lot about passion and really talks about it kind of from, his time at Disney, but also very much at Winchester Mystery House as well. And particularly steering the passion of his team. And they're referred to as caretakers of the house, and talks about how that really ties into everything they do, the way that they deliver the experience for the guest and the way that they serve the home. And even Sarah Winchester, who of course passed away well over 100 years ago, but that passion carries through today.
He also talks about providing reassurance, and there's lots of great lessons from Disney, but also just in the way he leads his teams and the way that he builds community around the Winchester Mystery House, and providing reassurance that life is okay. Things are going to be fine. Yes, things are going on that maybe you don't like, but at the end of the day, like if you've got, a good outlook and you're good to people and you're kind, things are going to be okay. So I really appreciated that outlook and providing some reassurance that we're going to be okay.
Yes, yes. That was really inspiring the way that he phrased it. I really
Yes.
like that. So, should we get out our paranormal infrared sensors and get to this interview with Walter Magnuson?
Let's do it.
Boo. Hey, Walter, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We are very excited to have you on today to learn all about you, your career, and of course, Winchester Mystery House. But let's start talking about yourself. Tell us about your background and your career.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I am very fortunate to be in the place I am. I lead the team of dedicated caretakers at Winchester Mystery House, which is a historic home with a lot of legends and lore associated with it in the Bay Area, San Jose. And prior to that, I was at Disney in a variety of roles and always worked in hospitalities and events and, guest-facing spaces. And have a beautiful wife who's an archivist, and we just celebrated Mother's Day, which was spectacular at a local attraction here. And we have a happy, smart, kind 10-year-old boy, Walter the Fourth, and he is just off to school bright and early.
So that must make you Walter the Third.
Correct. Thank you. Yes, you are astute. I am the
I'm
third, and my
good
father
with the
is the
math.
second. My grandfather was the first. Yes, that is the
Yeah.
lineage of the Walter Magnuson.
So I am curious. I know a couple of people who have, that type of lineage. Um, is there any sort of like familial, like carrying down not just the name, but like their lineage and what they've done in the past? Like, are you carrying on in your father's way in any way other than just your name?
Gosh, I'm not sure. My father is a retired FBI agent in law enforcement, and my grandfather was a fireman. So I'm certainly not carrying out in the same exact sectors, but it's certainly cool. We weren't planning on naming my son Walter, but it kind of felt right when Michelle was pregnant, and I don't know. I think it's special, and I know it means a lot to my father. But I don't know in terms of traditions we carry down. We don't, we're not of that ilk, but just kindness.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm also curious too. You said you celebrated Mother's Day at a local attraction, and I know the Bay Area has no shortage of them. Curious where you went.
Yeah, no, we are so freaking lucky here to have such spectacular attractions, many of them historic that have been around a long time. And the last 6, 7 days, it has been a blur in a good way. Myself and my small but mighty marketing team, Amelia and Ashley, we hit the Meltwater Summit in New York. It's focused on marketing, PR, mostly AI, just incredible insights on, the future of communications and social listening and all this good stuff we have to be doing. And then we helped open a park near Winchester Mystery House that used to be part of Sarah Winchester's orchard, and now it's a public park that just got done next to a new apartment complex. It's beautiful. And that takes us to Mother's Day. We have Roaring Camp Railroads in Felton, California, so maybe about 45 minutes from us in San Jose. Gorgeous, historic steam train, and they have one route that takes you up through ancient redwoods, and you are just, I mean, these trees are so tall and so majestic and so peaceful, and you're taking this gorgeous steam train just meandering through the hills. And then they have another route that actually takes you to the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, and you can get off and play. And some ancillary activities. They have a beautiful barn, and they did a really nice Mother's Day brunch. And we just love supporting them. And it was a perfect weather as well. It's about mid 70s, so spectacular Mother's Day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Walter, I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit about the Winchester Mystery House, what it is, a little bit of the lore there, just in case people don't know what that attraction is all about?
Sure. Yeah, we have pretty good name recognition, especially among attractions folks and West Coasters, but there's still some folks who aren't too familiar. We've been open since 1923, and our story goes back to Sarah Winchester, who she married the second president of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, based in New Haven, Connecticut. And they she had a beautiful life by all accounts and a wonderful marriage, and they certainly had pretty much unlimited income. And there were a lot of bad things that kind of happened to her. They lost a child very young. William himself, her husband, got tuberculosis, and he was ill and passed pretty young. And she had a number of other tragedies. And the legends and lore of the story is that she sought out a medium, which in this time of spiritualism was considered scientific. You would do that if you were looking for guidance. And the medium advised that, the all the karma is cursing you, and head out west and build a house and never stop construction and confuse the spirits, and you'll live forever and you'll shake these things off. And she bought an 8-bedroom farmhouse in San Jose. 1886, she moved out and she started construction that pretty much didn't stop till she passed in 1922. And it's a really bizarre structure. It has a lot of attributes, stairs that go to the ceiling and doors that lead to the outside, and a lot of confusing, meandering spaces. And the 1906 quake happened, and certain sections of the house were just closed off. So there were a lot of stories in her lifetime that were building up about what is this strange, at one point, 7-story structure in the middle of rolling hills and orchards of the Valley of Heart's Delight, San Jose. And what is she doing at night and what happens there? So when she passed, there was extreme demand to see the house, and a married couple bought it at auction, John and Mamie Brown. He had actually done some work in amusement parks. He had designed a roller coaster, the Backety Back, which was at a seaside amusement park in Canada, and he intended on creating sort of a multi-day resort experience, with the house being just one attraction. But there was such demand for the house, and the other ideas kind of fell flat. So they were the first tour guides, and they hired a small team, and we've entertained and welcomed millions of people from all over the world since 1923. So it's an incredible place, and people, we invite them to come and really try and figure out and make up their own minds as to, why she did what she did and why she built what she built.
So it went from residence to attraction pretty quickly, shortly after she passed. Then a pretty tight time frame, and they're really fascinating to understand that history of it. What's it like today? What's the experience like? The tour? What is that like? Can you walk us through?
Well, we thankfully have some very strong attendance, which we're so grateful for. And we rang in 100 years, 2023. So that's not a milestone that a lot of attractions get to. So we never take that for granted, that the story still resonates and people still want to see it. Daytime, we have a base tour, which is guide led, and it's a mansion tour, and it takes you through about 100 of 160 rooms. It's about 65 minutes, and you really get to understand a number of the different versions of the story, the legends, lore, the best history that we continue to uncover from archives here in California and back in New Haven at Yale. And you get to really take your time through a lot of these spaces and take photographs and ask questions and experience it. We have a few add-on experiences which are self-guided, and these are spaces that operationally are a little harder to incorporate into a guide-led tour. They also tend to be the most active locations. So those who are in the paranormal, there's been a lot of things seen and heard in the house over the years. So the attic leading up to the Witch's Cap, a beautiful turret, and the basement are self-guided add-ons where you can go and you can blow through them in 20 minutes, or you could take a couple hours and really take your time. And you're not fully alone. There are still caretakers there to answer questions and help with wayfinding. But those have been very, very popular. We just reopened the attic last week, and that's been great. And then we have a series of seasonal events. Obviously, a lot of people turn to us come fall, so we do a spectacular nighttime event, which it is a show. It is theatrical, and we do a full Halloween production with actors. And in recent times, we've worked with our partners at 13th Floor Entertainment Group on that experience. They do the Queen Mary's Dark Harbor and a number of other wonderful haunts throughout cross country. We do a wonderful holiday event, and we also have some ancillary activations throughout the estate that people can meander and explore, in addition to retail and food and beverage. So it's a fantastic attraction, and we have a very passionate, dedicated team there that takes it very seriously. We're taking care of Sarah's prized masterwork and sharing it with the world. So we all take it real serious.
Well, and it's interesting when you talk about the history that is still being uncovered that can then be brought into the tour context because a lot of people might say, well, it's a house. It's like Biltmore, right? I mean, you're not adding on anything to the Biltmore. However, there's always things being uncovered, and I would imagine that's really cool for the tour guides to be able to change their stories and do things. But then also, if you have guests that are coming back and they're now hearing different parts of the story and new things that they've just kind of uncovered. So I would imagine that's a big part of the guest experience as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think when I was in New York last week, I also went to New Haven. We've established some great relationships with the Yale Archive, with Evergreen Cemetery, which is their final resting place. The Yale hospital system actually has absorbed the chest clinic that she founded in her husband's name. It was a tuberculosis clinic. So many of the obituaries written position her as a philanthropist, that because she really did a lot of things for her with her money, both anonymously and publicly. So I think over time, while a lot of people will always be attracted to the stranger parts of the story and a lot of the questions and the legends and lore, we've also tried to make sure we're shining a light on all of the other incredible things she did as a very prominent, well-to-do business person of the day, which was not the norm. There were not many women with her power and her skills and her strategy and. So there's so many parts of the story, and to your point, Matt, I think as people come back, especially if they haven't been for a while, they're going to see wings of the house that were not open before. They're going to see restored rooms. They're going to have some enhancements that don't take you out of the period, but add to the experience, small audio and video touches and things like that. And anything new we uncover. And we have, we found some new photos, we found some new information, we found, uh, even when we find a liner in a cabinet or a piece of wallpaper or an unused roll of Lincrusta and we're still finding these things. So it's incredibly exciting for us, and I think it is exciting for the guests, especially the folks who come visit us every few years.
Being such a unique attraction that it is, I'm curious who you compare yourselves, I don't want to say against, but alongside. You spend time at Disney. You mentioned the Queen Mary. Matt mentioned Biltmore Estate as well, and I was thinking that as well of kind of from an operational side. Is it a museum? Is it kind of where do you sort of fit in, and kind of where do you kind of get maybe inspiration or comparisons to other similar types of attractions?
Well, when I started this job, I was so freaking excited because I am a huge Elvis Presley fan. And I was like, gosh, this is my excuse to get to know that team because now I'm managing a historic home with strong attendance. They set the bar. They're probably the second in the world next to the White House in terms of visitation. So I reached out and I've gotten so close, and they are friends and mentors to this day. Jack Soden, who opened Graceland in '82 with Priscilla, he's still at the helm. And you've got Angie, who runs the archive, and Regina, who runs ops. They are an incredible team. And I try and find an excuse to get out there as often as I can and talk shop and benchmark and look at trends. So it's definitely not apples to apples, but in terms of a historic home that a real person lived at and left quite a legacy, And, how do you tell that story and how do you keep it relevant? How do you appeal to beyond just Elvis fans or fans of history or the paranormal or whatever in our separate cases? How do you make it, a pop culture bucket list item for everyone? And I think those are things we're all solving for. And how do we use technology to complement it? So I would say Graceland is one that we benchmark all the time. Queen Mary, to your earlier point, another historic, purportedly haunted attraction. They have, you can stay overnight there. They have a lodging component that we currently don't. Um, Empire State Building was just there last week. We're very close. Another historic attraction. They just turned 95. We had some fun on social media with them a few years ago. So there's a lot of incredible attractions that we benchmark, as unique as we are, that we can definitely, speak in the same language.
So, Walter, I'd like to dive into your career just a little bit because as I was looking through LinkedIn and taking a look at some of the things you've done, a couple of the positions you had right next to each other really, kind of piqued my interest. And one was when you were the project manager of audio migration, and then
Mm,
you became the manager of operations very shortly after that, I think back in 2010.
yeah.
And those feel like very different type of positions. So I'm curious a little bit about that kind of transition that you went through in that progression of your career.
Yeah, no, they couldn't be more different. And just giving you a little more context leading up to that, I had done the Walt Disney World College program and got to have the most incredible first job at Disney as a Jungle Cruise skipper and worked a number of different attractions and uh it was incredible and just had a wonderful time, did about 3 years and I really wanted to grow and at a more accelerated rate. And I had a background in communications and film and audio video. And I had a few associates who had relocated to the West Coast. So I headed out west and I was at NBC Universal for a while in post-production and then an audio facility named Chase. And I really wanted to get back to Disney and I really wanted to get back to hospitality and parks. And so there was an opening at the studio and it was a very, very not so glamorous gig. And it was basically at that time taking all the audio elements in all the various formats globally and bringing them back to Burbank and getting them safely put on servers and stored. So, you know, uh, Castilian Spanish or Brazilian Portuguese, Song of the South, one. I mean, it was just like stuff coming in left and right and really just scheduling that work with a bunch of very talented sound engineers that probably that was not the highlight of their day. So I was doing that. While I was doing that, I also did some freelance work. They had discovered a lot of rediscovered some historical Disneyland footage, and they were looking for someone who had the kind of a Disney geek to look at it and try and database it, what it was. And some of it was them just, painting the Columbia for 20 hours. And some of it was, Walt doing park walks and stuff, which, Leslie Iwerks wound up using a lot of that for a recent documentary. So while I was doing that, I saw this parks roll, and that George Kalogridis was the president at Disneyland Resort at that time. It was going through the $1.5 billion expansion, California Adventure, Buena Vista Street, all that. And he was looking for someone who was going to come at things a little differently, who maybe thought differently. It was kind of a chief of staff, ops manager type role. Um, so I lucked out because I literally just applied. It was the weekend that World of Color premiered, and I bumped into George in the parks. I was there with my wife, and I saw him and Mary Niven do, and I didn't know George, but we had some mutual friends, and obviously he was very visible, so I knew what he looked like. So I, boldly just went over and introduced myself and said, "Hey, I work at the studio. I recently applied to this role. I think it reports to you. I'd be so honored. I have a parks background, and it looks like a very exciting time for Disneyland Resort." So I told him and, went through the interviews and was lucky enough to get it. So it was a interesting transition. And, you do wonder if had I just applied and not bumped into him that night, in front of, oh, what is that wonderful hot dog place? Best wiener in a supporting role, Award Wieners. That's where I bumped into him in front of, which is a spectacular location for strategic meetings.
Is there some networking or career advice baked in there somewhere to kind of pull out from that and say, all right, if you meet the president of the property to not be shy and go up and just make that introduction?
I think you want to have a little bit of what would I say if I'm lucky enough to meet this person, but I have found even to this day, if I reach out, especially now we have all these great tools with LinkedIn and Google and finding people. If I reach out, even if it's a pain in the butt request or a question or whatever, or I just want to talk shop or whatever, 9 out of 10 times I have found that people are very, very open to that and actually oftentimes excited to meet and greet and talk shop or tell you more about their attraction or their hotel or whatever. And certainly in the Disney world, I would hope that people, when they get to a certain level, take that responsibility seriously. That if someone reaches out to you, question, mentorship, can you connect me with so and so? I mean, that comes with the territory and that's part of the gig. And if you don't do it, I mean, that's kind of a dick move. So, George, as busy as he was, and I think if you talk to anyone who was lucky enough to work with him in his 51, 52-year career, um, you know, responded to his own mail back in the day, responded to his own email and text, did not like layers in between those responses. That was part of the reason of that chief of staff role. So personable. And I think that if you lose touch of that and you're just in that little bubble surrounded by VIP guides and getting sanitized stuff bubbling up, then that's trouble. I mean, you really want to stay close to the front line, and George always did that.
Mhm. Walter, I'm wondering if we can go back to the Mystery House for a moment and talk about its National Historic Landmark status, because I would imagine that that brings opportunities, but also potential challenges in operating the house. So I'm curious if you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're lucky enough, as I mentioned, to have great relationships with so many different partners, and a number of those are in the historic property space. I recently joined the board of History San Jose here, and they have a beautiful history park. It's about a 14-acre park with all these different historic structures, and so there is a lot of nuances that go into that, and a lot of especially if you're going to do an upgrade or you need to do something, who do I need to engage with and what permits need to be pulled and all that. So, we make sure we're on top of that, and we're following the right processes for all of that. I think when you are a landmark, I mean, it really is a big exclamation point on you as an attraction and saying that there is, a lot of importance why this place should stick around. So we don't take that for granted. And there are some additional layers and reviews and things that we have to do, especially if it's on the exterior of the property. Uh, we have a house historian. My wife is an archivist. She's helped us. We have tour guides who know more than I do. So we're pretty good at, okay, if we have to do this, how do we replace it with this? But once in a while, the city will have feedback that we either didn't anticipate and I remember we did an electric upgrade. When I got there, all the power was coming in above ground on a rickety pole that probably was, 50, 60 years old. So I said, gosh, maybe we want to think about doing an underground type thing. So we looked at that, and there was a type of hedge that we were going to put in to sort of mask some of the power upgrades. And we were advised that, that type wouldn't have grown in Sarah's time, and we should consider cherry laurel and some others. So there's feedback like that, which is good. But yeah, you don't do it without help, and we've got great resources, great contacts, great subject matter experts, and a great legal team to kind of help us navigate that because it's not always intuitive.
And then not only that, but there is also the movie Winchester that takes place on the property. Or curious if you can kind of talk about the tie-in of that and kind of what that was like to have that movie kind of take place and just the production aspect of it.
Yeah, that was in the works when I arrived, and then we kind of pressed on the gas, and it really took off. And once Helen Mirren signed on to the project, it accelerated very rapidly. And they did film on the property. They also recreated a number of the rooms and part of the house in Australia. The directors are Australian, and I couldn't believe it because even to this day, if I'm watching the film, when they cut back and forth between the actual house and what they recreated, you can't tell. I mean, the set decoration and the art direction, and it was just spectacular. And that was really special for us. I mean, that obviously focused on more of the spooky legends and lore, but having Helen Mirren on site and having her so, I mean, she could have led the tour. She was so well versed on the history and what the guest experience is like, and it was such a treat to spend time with her and personally walk her through the home and have her walk me through and just incredible. And her husband's, whose name escapes me, I believe he formerly directed some projects for Disney and some others, and they were just the most graceful, kind, intelligent, wonderful people to spend time with. And so that for me is the biggest thing. The movie is what it is, and it did great for us attendance-wise, and it did very well for the studio globally. But having Helen Mirren, I don't know if I could have casted that any better. Like what a gift.
And imagine if she did do a tour and the guests show up and here's Helen Mirren doing your tour.
Oh my gosh, that would have been spectacular. I wish we had her on site more, but yeah, she's a busy lady.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and speaking of that, the tours, I would imagine also are crafted by the tour guide a bit, right? And so they can maybe tell different stories or, share different things along the way. And I'm curious, just in the time that you've been there, how I guess the guest experience has evolved through the time, whether it's, again, we talked about, new information that you're able to share or new things that you're uncovering, but even just how the guests, kind of experience the house. How has that kind of changed over time?
Yeah, I hope so. I think when I got there, it was not the healthiest communication environment between the board, the GM, and the organization. So there was a lot of trust issues, I think, and a lot of the caretakers were so passionate and the frontline guides that I think they were worried if certain areas were open and they didn't have the budget to do it correctly, that it could be damaged or it could be. So there were, my first few walkthroughs with our historian and some of our senior guides, I was astonished because some of the most interesting spaces and rooms and things were closed and had never been on tour. And they were only accessed by the tour guides. And the tour guides loved them. And it was almost like sacrilegious to suggest that we should be opening these spaces to guests. So, what I'd like to hope we've done, in addition to all the upgrades and enhancements and restorations and all of that, I really hope that we've changed the culture internally that, we are here to serve the guests. We are here to, and if there's an interesting space, but well, we better damn well find a place to operationalize that and make sure our guests could see it because they're spending not a little amount of money or time to come visit us. And if God forbid something is damaged, that we're going to fix it, but we've really got to share all this with the guests. They're doing so. I think just, and not that they ever didn't want to, but it was very much a worry, I think, that, gosh, if this breaks, we'll never get to fix it, or if this is open, people won't respect it the way we do. And we found that is not the case. We've opened so many spaces, and so I think just, we're really here to serve the guests and try and exceed their expectations. And, that's what's paying for everything. That's why this house is still here. So I think just trying to really change the mindset a little bit that really, really as guest centric as we can be.
One of the things I'm wondering if we can touch on is I've heard you refer to the staff a few times as caretakers, and
Yeah.
I'm sure coming from Disney with cast members to caretakers at Winchester Mystery House, that wasn't probably too much of a learning curve or anything kind of foreign to you, but I'm wondering, I can understand it definitely at the surface level of why they'd be called that, but I wonder if we could kind of dive deeper into, philosophically, what does it mean to be a caretaker, and how does that kind of influence the culture and the job roles and kind of the responsibility of not just being an employee, but of being a caretaker of the house.
Yeah, hopefully positively. I mean, we all have different roles. I'm the executive director. We have estate services and food and beverage and beautiful gift shop called the Mercantile and retail and tour guides and maintenance, of course, back of house, we've got incredible marketing team. But together, all of us, we're caretakers. We're taking care of this Sarah Winchester's incredible home, and we're sharing her story with the world. We're just all doing it in different ways. So I was trying to find kind of a uniting term, because staff and employees and stuff, you do it's more than that. And for a lot of our employees, truly, it is a calling. And there are people at Disney like this too, and many organizations where they so identify with the story and the location and the brand and all that that they really feel like we definitely have people that feel like they work for Sarah. And that can be good and bad, because you may need to do something new that in their version of working for Sarah, she might not have been crazy about. So you really do have to try and take people on the journey and communicate the why. But yeah, I think caretakers is just a nice uniting thing, and it really describes what we do.
So, Walter, then how do you lead that team of caretakers, knowing that they're very passionate, knowing that they have certain ideas of maybe how things should go, kind of using your leadership style to get the best out of everybody, even if they might be going in different directions?
Yeah, well, I think it's really trying to steer that passion in the direction that is most beneficial for us and for the guest experience. So um, I think it's really, not leading from behind a desk and really trying to be communicative and be visible and town halls and newsletters and coffees and all that kind of stuff, and really just try and help them understand our purpose, and our purpose, yes, we do want to tell the story of Sarah Winchester, and we do want to take care of her majestic house. We are also, and this is not a four-letter word or a negative, we're also a for-profit entity. We're privately owned by the family who opened this in 1923. We cannot have volunteers. We cannot get donate donors. We can't. I'm not doing fundraising galas. It's all down to that ticket revenue. So, you know, we are 103 years old, and I have a responsibility to make sure that we continue to grow and we continue to be able to pay our bills and restore this home and stay relevant in a very, very complicated market and world. So I think it's just really trying to help them understand. I'll give a quick example. So way before my time, it's just orchards, right? Then across the street, there was a little shopping district, Town and Country opened in the 60s, 70s, Valley Fair, a big mall. Town and Country had the world's first Chuck E. Cheese there. So you start to see some development. And then in the last 10 years, we've actually had some luxury apartments sort of surround and kind of change our sight line, from the higher floors. So you don't see the rolling hills anymore. Now you see the buildings next door. And there was a lot of negative Debbie Downer stuff on these buildings being built around us. And I tried to hit it dead on in a town hall. And I said, look, we're all going to miss the sight lines of seeing the hills that Sarah saw from her windows, right? But these are our new neighbors. And we've heard that Sarah was very kind to neighborhood children, had ice cream socials and all this. Well, stop with the Debbie Downer stuff. We're going to send all these folks who move into the apartment next door tickets to come see us and hope that when their family comes, they come right next door. And, these are our new neighbors. And we can't change this. This is not our property. So it's really just trying to help them understand that, yeah, we miss our sight lines, but now we've got 2,000 people right next door that are going to be raising families and walking their dogs and doing all these wonderful things, making this neighborhood even more vibrant.
Mhm.
So we got to welcome them.
It's definitely a great example of kind of making lemonade in a certain way of, an experience that kind of starts out negative, but saying, no, there's actually a really positive spin on this, and you were able to connect it back to the story of the home and with Sarah as well. So that was really interesting to kind of be able to see it connect those dots on there. Uh, You've mentioned a few times some potential paranormal activity, and that maybe that drives a reason for some people to visit, and I kind of want to scratch that itch a little bit on, is it haunted? Have you seen anything? What are, the stories that people tell?
Yeah, we've hosted some incredibly talented mediums, including James Van Praagh and some others, and they've given a lot of insights as to why this place is so active. And I think all of us have experienced various things that we can't explain. And thankfully, with Winchester Mystery House, it is not a dark place of murder and atrocity. You do have the Winchester rifle backstory, but those incidents did not happen within those halls. So it's not because I've toured places that are much darker in origin stories and not felt like I wanted to stick around. Winchester Mystery House, I think the majority of people, especially if they're sensitive to this kind of thing and open to it, it feels very welcoming. And James Van Praagh said, "Oh, Sarah is just thrilled that people are still admiring her work." Many of the people who see or hear things, it's often her workers that they say, "Well, that she treated them so well, they didn't want to leave." So I've had windows slam shut and doors open, and I've heard things when I'm the only one in the house, that kind of thing. But we've had guides that have seen physical manifestations, and we've had so many constantly hosting influencers and investigators, and from Ghost Adventures and Travel Channel and Discovery and all that, down to YouTubers with huge followings, and many capture very interesting things that are unexplained, and we do paranormal investigations as well that guests can buy a ticket to. We don't do them that often, but when we do them, and even my son, who's 10, he's grown up around spooky stuff, and he enjoys it. And there's an excitement about it. It doesn't feel dark and scary and evil and demonic. It's, when someone's little meter goes off, there is such an excitement around everyone because it's a very participatory, engaging way to experience an attraction. So yeah, we've all seen and heard a lot of things, and it's it keeps it exciting.
So, Walter, based on that and something you said earlier, you said that the fall is a very popular time at the house for obvious reasons. But do you have a kind of a favorite time of year at the house?
Oh gosh, yeah, well, the fall is my favorite season, and growing up in New York with the majestic foliage and all the wonderful fall attributes and pumpkin everywhere, and so I adore the fall. I will say spring is majestic here in the Bay Area in the South Bay. It is truly, and if you have allergies, it can be an issue, but it is truly breathtaking. The things that bloom and the scents and the weather and the estate. We're down to about 5.5 acres from her miles of property, but it still has, just gorgeous gardens and apricot trees. And so there is something very majestic about the springtime. But in terms of activations, it's hard to top the fall because while we do some Christmas activations and things throughout the year, the fall, day and night, it just is the place that you want to visit for sure. Come Halloween time.
So, Walter, the the house has been open for 103 years, and it has that 103-year history of being an attraction. I'm curious, looking into the future, what do you see? What evolution do you see, or kind of what do you envision? Really broadly asking, what do you think it looks like in 103 years from now?
Yeah, well, I think at Disney I got to put together a lot of experiences and events for a lot of the really high affinity guests, so Club 33 and annual pass holders and stuff. And I got to work with a lot of the folks who were still around who had worked with Walt and and that was such an honor because many of them have since passed. But getting to really understand, what a Disney theme park aspires to do, and thus many of us. Uh, John Hench said it best, we're one of Walt's nine old men, incredible designer, and so involved in so much of the Disneyland look and feel, and mentored Kim Irvine, who just retired. But anyway, he would always say, it's not escapism and it's not fantasy, it's reassurance. Disney is providing reassurance, and it's reassurance that the our history is incredible and the world's a great place and your neighbor is wonderful and friendly and this place is worth visiting and you're going to leave inspired and better that you did. And I think, places like Winchester Mystery House and Graceland and Biltmore and all these wonderful attractions, I think when they're doing what they're supposed to do, they provide that feeling. And you leave inspired and reassured that the world's a good place and that amazing things are happening. And maybe you made a friend or learned something. So, hopefully Winchester Mystery House 100 years from now is still a place of discovery and a place that gives people, an emotional experience that they're hopefully talking about for weeks, months, years to come.
That's awesome. And I love the way that you kind of encapsulated not just the house, but also kind of the emotional experience that people will have no matter where they go to get inspired and to see the world is hopefully a great place. So thank you for sharing that, Walter. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time. We're coming up on the end of the time that we're going to have together. But if somebody wanted to learn more about Winchester Mystery House or get in touch with you directly, where would you send them?
Sure, yeah, winchestermysteryhouse.com, obviously, and we've got some great social profiles and a lot of no shortage of information on Winchester Mystery House out there. So, and we certainly invite everyone to come visit and take a tour. We're open 7 days a week, and we've got a lot of different seasonal activations and nighttime experiences as well. So it's a great place to visit. For me, a lot of people find me through LinkedIn. I think that's a nice conduit. My email is easy. It's walter at winchestermysteryhouse.com, but either that or email. And always happy to talk shop and meet fellow attraction pros.
Well said. Walter, this has been fantastic, really interesting to hear about your career background as well as just all about Winchester Mystery House. I do have one last question before we let you go. You said
Sure.
you did a college program at Walt Disney World on the Jungle Cruise, and
Yes.
just wondering if you got any favorite jokes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I will not end the session with Jungle Cruise jokes, but I will tell you that that was hard to put into words how magical and special a first Disney job as being a Jungle Cruise skipper. Um, we are like a fraternity. I mean, I bump into skippers all the time from all walks of life, and there is something so incredible, the bond between the people who have worked those rivers and taken that boat around and around. Yeah, some of the guest experiences were just incredible. Letting kids drive your boat and staying in touch with them and stuff like that, and the fact that obviously it's one of the opening day attractions is so special when you're a history buff like me. So I will not do the jokes justice, but I did tell them many. I'm sure the videos exist somewhere, and what an incredible attraction. And like all historic attractions that have been open for a long time, and restaurants and hotels and theme parks and everything, go visit them because anytime something closes. Oh my gosh, it closed. Yeah, I had my prom there. I went on a date there. I went, when was the last time you went? Oh, 20 years ago. Well, why
Mhm.
do you think it closed? So any place that means something to you, especially if it's been around a long time, go there, spend money, and write good reviews.
Yeah, yeah. I've
That was a
actually
much
got
better answer to the question that, yes, thank you. Thank you for derailing it in that way.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate
And I was just going to share that it's just been announced that well, there's a whole new area going into Islands of Adventure, and I got married right in front of the Mystic Fountain, and the Mystic Fountain is going away. So that's
Oh my
a little
gosh.
sad for us, but luckily the marriage is still intact, so that worked out. But Walter, this has been a historic episode of the Attraction Pros podcast. So we can't thank you enough for your time. And for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.